Ma Pimpo Haiti, the Haitian Diaspora Back in Haiti podcast. As always, we're speaking with you, to you, about the transition, the lifestyle of being in Haiti. And we have guests who have successfully made that transition. We're going to come in, give their perspective, give their professional experience, what they're doing in Haiti, impactful, and hopefully impart information and perhaps a bit of inspiration to help you in your eventual potential move, transition to help Haiti in whatever, whatever your background, however it may be. Haiti's an on-hands mission because the country only changes when we out in the diaspora figure out a successful way, a successful strategy to re-engage in the country. My co-host, the one and only Pastor
Mark Antoine.
Listen, man, glad to have you sharing the steering wheel with me as we have a guest, and this guest is real special, real impactful. This is an associate of Mark. In fact, so much so, Mark, I'm gonna give you the reins here to build her up and then introduce our guest. Go ahead, Mark.
Sure. Today we have a really good friend of mine, a sister of mine. I consider her family is Jessica Laguerre, coming from Haiti, but we grew up together in Philadelphia. And so over the past, I would say probably 10 or so years, we have known each other and really been able to get to know her and her family. And she's moved back to Haiti and doing really, really great work. She is a globe trotter. She is very fierce. She is a go-getter. And so I think everyone is in tune for a great, great show and a great, great discussion today.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome, Jessica. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. I mean, as soon as I heard this was happening, I was like, Mark, I want to share. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. As Mark said, you're doing work related to development. And what's really interesting, why I'm so emphatic, multiple reasons why I'm emphatic. First off, you're our first female guest.
Yes.
I'm so happy about that, to give that perspective. That's number one. Number two, you're not in Port-au-Prince. And I'm always emphatic to bring folks who are doing things elsewhere, because the big focus is always Port-au-Prince this, Port-au-Prince that, but the country is so much more than that. And actually, my favorite part of Haiti is anything outside of Port-au-Prince. So, so where you are right now, you are in Artibonite. Specifically, where's just to give folks a reference of where you're at?
Yeah, so I am in Deschapelles. I'm at Hôpital Albert Schweitzer, which is a hospital located in the commune of Verret in Artibonite. So we're about 45 minutes from Saint Mark, which is the closest big city, and maybe about an hour away from Mirebalais.
Okay, so good stuff. You're certainly out. I really do call that the provinces there. Mm-hmm. So that you're really
yes.
so
and good old Creole will say Madeo.
So from the perspective of your profession, just give folks an idea of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to let Jessica really walk us through her background stateside, and then her eventual transition to Haiti, back to Haiti. Right. And then she's going to be talking about professionally what she's doing because she's in development work. Right. So I'll let her really break that down to you, and specifically what she's doing, because what she's doing in particular, her day to day is in the medical aspect, the medical sphere. Yeah. She's going to then talk about, not only the benefits and difficulties of that, but also the how others could potentially plug into the sort of realm and area that she's in. Right, because a lot of folks really do want to come back and do real development work, and so that's going to be fun to understand and hear from her. And then finally, we're gonna wind it out and really talk about COVID-19, what she's seeing, because she is in that medical area, so she can really give a very solid, reputable perspective as someone who's dealing with it on the day to day. Right, and that's the table of contents of what we're looking to talk about. Right.
Yep.
All right. So first question, Jessica, listen, walk us through who is Jessica Laguerre, from the very beginning and to ultimately how you ended up where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always start everything by talking about my big family, right? My very, very big family. So I come from a family of 8 children. So I have 7 siblings. Girl power, 6 girls, 2 boys. If if you know enough about Haitian culture, you know how crazy it can get when you're trying to get a second boy.
Mm.
So the story is first girl, second boy, and then no, first girl, and then the second child was a boy, and then everyone else girls up until we get to my little brother, and then it stops. So obviously, there's no denying that they're looking to get another boy, oh, which is why there's 8 of us, and I'm extremely grateful. And shout out to them, the Laguerre crew. We're very close, very tight family. Very how do I say this? Like we're intense. We're in a space because it's a lot of us and a lot of energy, and we're very loud and part of who we are. So born and raised in Port-au-Prince, actually, very similar to Mark. Moved to the States when I was 12, moved to Philly, but my parents remained in Haiti while my siblings and I kind of did our thing in Philly. So we all lived together. So I was fortunate enough when that we didn't all move at the same time. So my older siblings moved like 1 or 2 or 3 at a time. By the time they got to me, we had figured things out so well that I really would benefit most from the privilege of being stateside, right? So the education system, just thinking about like, how do you choose the best school to set you up for college? Then how do you figure out how to make college work to set you up for grad school, like undergrad and so on. So I'm grateful for my journey because a lot of it is really all about family and the way God placed us and set things up for us.
Mm.
And I was able to move to Philly. I went to a middle school. Then I had great advocates, honestly. My life is full of great advocates that knew and identified things that I would be successful at for me without me necessarily knowing it and guiding me. So in middle school, I had great teachers who said, you need to go to Central High. And Central is one of the best high schools, public high school in Pennsylvania, and one of, I think maybe first or second best public high school in Philly.
Yeah.
So they set me up on that track. And then from Central, with advisors and just being in this competitive environment of like, we're not only doing 4.0, we're doing 4.2,
Mm.
and we're not doing regular coursework, we're doing AP coursework and advanced and honors coursework. Just being in that environment set me up for college.
Mm.
And I was able to get a full tuition scholarship for my undergrad. And I studied international studies and sociology. I dual majored. And I was fortunate enough to really travel during that time. Like, I mean, I spent some time in France, some time in India, went back and forth between Haiti and the States, doing internships, volunteering. So it really gave me good perspective in terms of what I wanted to do. So I was very clear, like, and I practiced and I had chance to experience things, and I knew that I was definitely coming back to Haiti early on. So it was a one-shot thing. So undergrad quickly merged into grad school because I knew I just wanted to get done and move back. I originally wanted to go to law school, but then I quickly learned there were other ways to advocate for people. And I wasn't satisfied with the justice system. And I was worried about how limited I would be in Haiti in that context. So I switched and went to grad school for social work. So I went to grad school in Cleveland. I have a Master's of Science in Social Administration from Case Western Reserve. And when I completed in May, I moved back in August. So I think I ended everything in May, graduated, moved back to Philly, spent the summer with my family in Philly. And then the whole time I knew I was looking for work in Haiti, I didn't even really give myself time or a chance to jumpstart my career stateside because I knew everything had to happen here. That when I graduated, I spent one summer in Philly, just kind of like not working, but really just taking in and soaking in the time with my siblings because they're all still stateside. I'm the only one that came back. And then I was applying for work, and then I got an opportunity with an organization called HELP, Haitian Education Leadership Program. Great organization. And I started with them, and I was originally based out of Port-au-Prince. I started the work because it was a challenge, but then it quickly, what I was hired to do, I did it. And then it felt like I was just repeating the process day to day. And I was so, like, I'm still so young and early in my career. I just didn't want to do things in a routine way. So I intentionally seeked out an opportunity that would have me outside of Port-au-Prince and doing something completely different that I would never be doing the same thing twice. So I ended up at HAS, which is Hôpital Albert Schweitzer, and I started as a program manager with them, then quickly got promoted to senior admin. So I'm like the senior administrator right now.
Let me jump in there just to clarify, because that name it's a tricky name. So it's Hospital Andrew Schweitzer.
Hospital Albert.
Albert. Okay, not Andrews. That's right. Albert. Albert Schweitzer. SCHWEIZR, something in that ballpark.
Yes. Yeah. I still misspell it all the time, but definitely somewhere.
Yeah, because you say, even me, when I first heard it, I was like, huh? And I had to take a look at it. So for our listeners, it's Hospital Albert Schweitzer, and it's out in the Artibonite area there, very near Petite Rivière. If you guys
yes,
the map, so.
Yes, okay. And it's an interesting institution in itself that it's been in Haiti for over 63 years. And the founders are actually a wealthy family from Pittsburgh, the Mellon family, if you've heard of the Mellon Bank. So Larry Mellon founded the hospital. In his late 40s, he learned about a similar hospital in Gabon in Africa. And he was inspired to do something similar. So then he, in his 40s, he went to med school just so he could do this. And then he ended up choosing Deschapelles. He visited a number of communities, but he ended up choosing this community to do this work in. Yeah.
Very cool. And it's the Philly connection there. It's very strong, I see.
PA. All good things come from PA.
Yes.
So we see that though there's a full circle there because it's important to note. So you were born in Haiti. You grew up. How many years did you spend before you moved to the States?
12 years.
12 years. Okay, and then you left, and then from 12 until what age did you come back? Like,
I came back. What was it? 24.
Okay, 24. So over 12. As long as you were in Haiti, you were spent out of Haiti. And
yes.
That's important. Very formative years of 12 to 24 as you're a teenager and experiencing all that, and then you went to university. But then you always had that, I'm going to come back and I'm going to impact my country in a way that is, going to change as many lives as possible, which is great. Now that first opportunity I had you in Port-au-Prince, what was that? Can you expand a little bit on that first opportunity?
I was at the Haitian Education Leadership Program. It was called HELP.
Okay.
And they're a great organization providing access to higher education in Haiti to people from low-income families. So they recruit nationwide, all throughout the country, not just Port-au-Prince, and they look for the best of the best students, and then they give them a full scholarship. It was a great organization for me to start with because I learned so much from them, and I had to humble myself. And I think it's important to do that when transitioning back. And HELP was a great way for me to stay grounded, but also be conscious of my privilege while continuing to learn before I transitioned into something else. So I'm grateful that I was even offered that opportunity, and I would always recommend and tell people to check them out. Like it's a great organization.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
If I could rewind a bit, Jess, Chris, you were born in Haiti, but left early, correct?
Yeah, I was born there, left at 3. So very little exposure.
So both Chris and I left Haiti very young. So growing up, we hardly knew anything about Haiti. But you left, you were able to go to school there. So you have your upbringing there, which is different than Chris and I. And usually, what I find, with the people that I know is that when people leave Haiti around that age, 12, 13, kind of teenage years, they're a bit more reluctant to return to live. I'm not sure if that's your experience, but I find a lot of the people that I know who left Haiti around that age, they're less, they're they're less open to the idea of returning back to Haiti to live.
Yeah.
So what was different about your experience? And why do you think that is, that at that age people are less willing to move back to Haiti?
I want to first talk about why I think they're less willing, right? Because I have a number of people in my circle with similar experiences that say they will never come back. And not even to visit. That's how much their experience shaped them. And this is another area where I tap into privilege and say we all have different experience and different perspective of Haiti. And I think that shifts and mold a lot for people. So I left Haiti when things were starting to get bad, right? So I was in Haiti during that Aristide era. Right, that kidnapping, the désordre, the manifestation. So I saw all of that. We saw all of the when poverty really started, the poverty rate really started to go high, and the opportunities really started to lessen in Haiti. I was a young, early teenage years. I was seeing it. I think the difference in what may have been a buffer for me, and I think it will be the same for a lot of people. My parents had, they're quite comfortable and successful in Haiti. So that served as a buffer for me. And I wasn't exposed to what a lot of other people were exposed to. That being said, I still know a great deal of people who come from a similar background who still choose not to come back because they're aware of how limited they are. But I think me coming back is like much more than just about my experience. It's about what I wanted to do. I would be doing development work, whether it was in Haiti or not, right? And this is something I always say, like I would do social work, I would do community organizing, I would do like nonprofit work stateside. So I told myself, hey, I could do this stateside and I have the language, I have the skill set, and I know this well enough, why can I do it back home? Because the challenges are the same, I believe. It's all about perspective. What do you choose? What do you prefer? Like you could stay in Philly and do social work in Philly, but the disparity is still pretty big in terms of income and lifestyle for most people. Then you also have some aspect of insecurity. There's no way you're going to compare it to Haiti and say it's the same thing because the lack of infrastructure. But if you really identify what your priorities are, like I didn't come back to Haiti to experience Philly. I didn't come back to Haiti to experience New York, right? I came back to Haiti because I miss Haiti and I wanted to be part of the change agents. Making a shift. So I think the biggest thing is expectations for people coming back. What are you expecting? What are you hoping to get out of this experience? And I think that makes the difference because some people are in a position where they have a lot more responsibilities. So it's harder to make that transition back for a pay cut or like a different lifestyle. Whereas when I moved back, I was young, single, didn't really have much, and I had that luxury and that privilege to be able to make such a drastic decision to move me back without any income, even if I didn't get a job right away.
Got it.
And I think we have to be a little bit honest about that. I think a lot of Haitians want to come back home, but they have a lot of family members who depend on them. And it's often hard for them to make that decision without having a direct impact or consequence on them as well with the amount that they send back from their income stateside.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because I can speak to, your folks who do stay in the country longer. It was where you come from, right? I know my folks, my mom in particular. She grew up in a rural Munguamon. She grew up in a very rural environment. It wasn't until her teenager years that she came to Port-au-Prince. But again, it was during a time where things were okay, right? But then when because it was on the Duvalier and the quote unquote quietness and peace of that era, but then finally when things started to get really ruckus and bad, she left, but that still shapes her because her experience always, she was a munde of minimal means, right? And so her experience was always, she would see the underbelly of the country, day to day. And so when it was time for her to go, and she was like she wasn't gonna come back, and we get it, you know. But my dad, though, even though he saw the underbelly, he was slightly more affluent. Came from a family that was more or less established and had considerable property, and so he always saw the opportunities for potentially what they could be, which is, you know, the country's rich with resources, and all it takes is a mind that's organized to engage and potentially, you know, have a very comfortable life. So it really does matter where you come from. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So let me ask. So what you mentioned that you traveled quite a bit, you know, which is, I found that interesting. You're in India and a bunch of different places. So you know, how do you view Haiti from that perspective? I've traveled a little bit, and it's helped me certainly with just life in general. But what, you know, aspect or two that has been most beneficial from your travels that allowed you to you know, be successful so far relatively?
For me, and this has been more intentional in the past couple of years on my end. I've been intentional about picking out countries that I feel like are not necessarily the US, but are not necessarily Haiti. So the good in between countries that are a little bit further ahead than Haiti, but are not quite at that US or other European country standard. I do this for two reasons. The first one is, I think sometimes we have this perception that things have to be done the way it's done in the US, which to me is completely off. And the other thing is, when you see something in progress, it's much more optimistic to visualize what that will look like in a place where it's not applicable yet. So in my time in India, I spent an entire semester in India from January to May. I took public transportation in India. I was walking everywhere, which are things that I don't really do in Haiti. But it was a great experience for me to see how possible and what can we do, what can we get from them that we can apply and make happen back home. So I always get really excited, and instead of it being like Haiti pa gen sa, or we don't have this in Haiti, it's always like, oh, what if we do this, and this, and tweak this? This is something that's reasonable and aligns with our cultural standards, but doesn't necessarily require a lot of resources to make happen. And this was what India was like for me. Same with Costa Rica. I mean, they're a top-notch country in terms of like ecotourism and the clean energy, green energy. And I always think about all the ways we're not exploiting our solar, the solar power. So to me, whenever I visit, I'm just encouraged, and I'm like, I take the opportunity to learn a lot and see what can we do back home, right? Like recycling, and not necessarily in a high sophisticated like infrastructure, but what does it look like to recycle, good old school recycling and reusing papers and building things out of it, or like creating things out of that. So I always use it as an opportunity to learn, to see what's possible. It doesn't have to be 100% to the level of the US, but how can we use that to help improve some things?
Yeah. To jump in there now, I know you said that your parents remain in Haiti, and so that kind of helped with your transition.
Yes.
But then also with your travels to the, you know, different countries you've been to, India, Costa Rica, when you finally made a decision to return to Haiti, I'm curious in understanding the difference in dynamic between a man returning and a woman returning. Both Chris and I have returned. I mean, you usually hear of men returning. I do know a few women who have done it, but less so. What do you think were some of the biggest challenges or differences because of your sex?
I think there's some aspect of it that comes into the career track, right? The professional world. You always, I think in my field, in my place of work, it's not intentional, but it just so happened to be that the way our culture and the way we do things, we often groom men to be in position of leadership. So I knew I wanted to be in a position where I was making big decisions, like changing things, which means ultimately I would have to be in a leadership role. So it's always very interesting to see the dynamic there, because even now in my role, and being very young and women, and then there's other aspect of it. It's like you're young woman, and then you're Black which there are all these layers to it. That can be barriers, I think, for a lot of Haitian women trying to come back. And I think also there's just the culture and the expectations or the way things are done. I mean, not in a way, and it's not like meant to be malicious, but it's just how kind of like it happens. Like, for example, when I moved back home, it was very, very hard because I transitioned with my parents. And there was all this fear around what would happen to me driving on my own, or like me being out, or just having a balance of social life and perceptions, right? Ou pas supposé do that. You can't really do this, maybe not wear this. And I mean, you still have to realize that Haiti in a lot of ways is still very conservative.
Yeah.
So to be coming from the state with that mentality that I can do everything like I can do, which is what this is what the culture is in the US, right?
Sure,
so to come back and to have these kind of like in your face, you can't do this because of that. Like, and it's not, they're not gonna hide it. It's very gonna be in your face.
Yeah, yeah.
So
sure.
it's interesting. Plus there's the added pressure and expectation that you'll be able to do some things that a lot of local women can do that I can't do, right?
Sure.
Like, so the cooking, the cleaning, a lot of the stuff that like they do at the top notch à la marché, like I don't have that experience because I spent most of my young adult years in the States so far.
Right.
So coming back, I'm not gonna know necessarily how to make the top notch old school Haitian jus sauce pois légumes.
Ou va ka fè légumes, Jess?
You're not gonna make it like to their Haitian standard. You know what I mean? There's still that bias there, like that you're not gonna make it or do things how they're doing it, or like the meat, buying the meat from the market. Oh my gosh! These are all things that you're not exposed to, and if you spent most of your time in a more US-based cultural mindset, that you're not going to have a lot of experience doing. So I think those are those are some of the things that come in. And then I think also in the professional world, you often have colleagues, and this is all around, not even at where I'm at now. I know this from a lot of my other girlfriends who are who came back. It's just challenging to really have your voice heard sometimes. It's challenging.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I was very curious about. Is just that it's hard to because I from a male perspective, there's a lot of things I do that I know Haiti is conservative, and I know that it's not necessarily an issue of insecurity. It's just an issue of norms, right? It's just not normal, right? For a male to do this and a woman to do that, depending on where you're going, what time you're going, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, but the core question I asked Jessica, it's the core was about safety. Do you feel overall, even though you perhaps you choose not to do certain things, do you feel if the crap hit the fan and you had to do things, for example, take a moto, take public transportation, do you feel you could?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I felt unsafe because I'm a woman. I wouldn't say that at all. I think the insecurity and this is the interesting dynamic here in Haiti. The insecurity is not so much about like my sex or like my identity. It's more about like the class, right? So, and I think that's something that is often hard to grasp if you're not living in a country with such extreme disparities.
Yeah.
You are not going to take a moto because you're wearing certain things, and once you stand out or you go to the moto station, you're just gonna stand out. Like automatically they're gonna be like, oh, this is not the norm for you. So I don't do certain things because I think safety wise it just puts you in a vulnerable position if you're not well versed on the fare, if you look like you're too confused. I think these would be things that are challenging not only for me as a woman but any men trying to do it. But like if they pick up the accent, Like you already know you're gonna get ripped off.
For sure, for sure.
Right?
Accent tax.
So so it's to me it's much more about the class than it is about my identity. I think in being conservative the way that we are, and at least in the environments that I've been to, if anything, it's an extra layer of protection because everyone's always looking out. Oh, so avec ti dame ça. Like there's always an eye on you in that sense to me. So
Okay. That's good to get that perspective. It's not necessarily unique to being a woman, but just the general conception of being, in a sense, foreign. You've reestablished yourself. Okay. So from that professional perspective, I'd like to hear more about that. So, you from help and then you transitioned to this. So was it online? Like, how did you hear about that? And then talk about that organization. What are they doing out there? Like the full girth of all the different programs they may be involved in, some of the biggest impacts you feel they're doing, how have you helped them in all these different initiatives? So really break all that down to us.
yeah. So once I made up my mind that my time was up, I helped. And this was from not seeing any other position that I would want to transition into there. I got on Jobpal, and I mean, tip for anyone considering coming back: don't underestimate Jobpal and idealists, because often I think people say you need to know someone to get a job, and I can honestly say my 2 positions I had no direct connections or ties or anyone who put in a word for me.
So Jobpal, that's spelled JOBPAW.com
Yes.
or .at. .com?
I think it's .com.
.com, right?
And then you
idealist.
have idealist.
How do you spell that?
It's IDEALIST. And you would have to narrow it down by country. And then there's also DEVX, DEVX. These 3 platforms were key in my search process whenever I was thinking about coming back to Haiti. And I was looking way before I finish, just so I had an idea of what was available, what they were looking like, right? So when I was ready to transition out of help, I found an opening in Jobpal and I sent my documents in, my CV, resume, and so on. And I got an interview. The interview for both of my positions were via Skype. So that's another thing to consider for people who feel like they have to be on the ground to apply for work. That's not necessarily true, right? You can apply, and a lot of these organizations are comfortable with Skype or WhatsApp because this is not the first time they're recruiting someone abroad.
Yeah.
So I did my interview, and I did the interview during the February pay look, I think. So I was home, just, followed through, and I learned about the organization once I saw the posting. So I saw the posting, did some research about them, because that's another thing too. You want to be honest with what you want to do, and how you want to do it, because work in Haiti is pretty hard. And I think if you're doing something that you don't necessarily want to do, it's going to make the experience even more unpleasurable. So I was intentional about okay, let me screen this. So I was leaving help because I felt like I was out of options and out of learning opportunities. So I screened Hôpital Albert Schweitzer, also known as HAS. And they not only have a hospital that's like a 130-bed hospital, they have 4 community health centers, they have a wells and water program, they have reforestation work, and they have a whole campus where the staff resides. So, I mean, the amount of work was limitless in terms of what you could do here, because it's such a big organization. So I interviewed, I got the position, and I started with them in May. But this, like I said, this was an opportunity where I knew someone who was already working there. Or they it was a connection, because I think sometimes that's often the narrative. Or something. And I think we sometimes have to really move away from what other people are telling us and just do things our way. And I prayed about it, and then boom, it just kind of happened for me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And so now you're here in this organization. So you'll break that down of what the organization is actually doing and all the different facets of its impact in the community. Yeah.
So like I mentioned, HS has been around for 63 years plus. So this year will be 64. And a lot of the work really has been wraparound services to improve the quality of life of people. That's the mission: improve the quality of life of the people of the Artibonite Valley. So that comes in the forms of, that means we're going to have programs that are going to come and go because at a certain time they're relevant. But then if there's no longer a need for it, you need to kind of like shift.
Mm-hmm.
So the hospital that we have now serves about 100, it has 130 beds, but we're almost over 130 beds. Um, and we hospitalize maybe 40,000 patients a year. The care is accessible, affordable, which makes all the difference. If you know anything about the healthcare context in Haiti, it's a fee-based system. So even for emergencies, most institutions unfortunately are not in a position to offer services for free. So at HAS, we pride ourselves on being able to provide the service and providing it at an affordable, really, really affordable price point. So the communities that we serve, they're like mountain. Some of the people are coming from the mountain, so the mountain communities. So if they're coming down, 100 good is a pretty big commitment for them, right? So like our consultations are like 100 goods, whereas most would maybe be 3,000 in other areas in the Port-au-Prince
Sure.
And by the way,
offices.
so folks to understand what 100 good is, 100 good at today's current exchange rate, 100 good is $1.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So since this is nonprofit, a lot of our funds come from donors in the US and in Europe and in Canada. So like, please, if you're listening to this and you're interested, I'm just gonna have to get this plug in, like go on our website and donate because
Yeah.
literally every dollar goes a long way.
Yeah.
So we not only provide like the outpatient clinic, we have inpatient, we have OR. So we really are like a fully functioning hospital. We can do the lab work in hospital. We have our own blood bank and we have an outpatient pharmacy. So not only are you going to get access to the healthcare services inside, but like if you get a prescription, you can fill it out with us before you go at still an affordable price.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to put the organization's contact info in the show notes. So don't worry, we got you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Jess, I've heard a couple people actually say that Hôpital Albert Schweitzer is a public hospital. Is it run by the state in some way, or it's still private, right?
Yeah, it's entirely nonprofit. So we're private, but private nonprofit.
Sure.
So we're a registered NGO. So what that means, sometimes they say it's a public hospital because I believe when the hospital was founded, there was an arrangement between the Haitian government and the founders that they would facilitate them getting the land to do the hospital. So this is like an interesting concept because usually the idea is like if the hospital would need to shut down, we can't just shut it down and liquidate all the assets and like, go. We would have to call in the Haitian government and bring them in because it's a joint collaboration in a way, but it's definitely a nonprofit, not private or public.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, so you certainly talked about the medical aspect of what you do. What other things that because I know this they do quite a bit of that. They sort of function as a community center in terms of many different campaigns that are going on. So what sort of campaigns have you been aware of in the time you've been there, and what sort of impact have they had?
So right now we're doing a lot of WASH education training, right? So especially with COVID-19, so we're going out in the community, we're installing TP taps, distributing the buckets with the faucet, making sure they are aware on how to wash their hands. And we also work closely with like a lot of the stakeholders in the community. So like the schools, the churches, we dig wells. We build latrines. So we do a little bit of everything. And reforestation is also a big part of our work. And, anyone who knows the situation in Haiti knows that things are really, really, really bad in terms of like the way we're managing or greenery, like just in general, like, most people are cutting trees down and not because they really want to, but it's like the need to use it for charcoal or to sell for something else or for furniture. So we do a reforestation project where we identify easy, like low maintenance, like kind of like things that we can plant so that we don't need to have someone working them all the time. And that's another part. Like, we often talk about that, but we don't realize how difficult it is to upkeep and to really do a good job at working to prevent us from completely getting rid of our like the forest or like the greenery and the space in the mountain. So the erosion is really bad, but also there's limited water. So they, even if they don't plant the right tree, they're not going to be like, it's just not, you basically walk like once you act in good old Creole.
Yeah.
So you have to identify what can you plant that's low maintenance, that doesn't need much, that will do its own thing on its own, even if we don't come back in 20 years. So a lot of our reforestation work is based around that and training the community on how to do that.
Okay. And do you really, I mean, are you seeing the change from that reforestation aspect? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So we, out of the 4 health centers, HAS has 2 of them are in the mountains, and a lot of time we do like an integrated community services. So we try to make sure our reforestation efforts align with the health center needs. And so in doing that, often on the road to the health center, you'll see like the different groups that, because they have, every year they pick a group of community leaders to do this work with. So you can identify the pockets and you can start seeing the pockets of trees that are growing randomly in this place that's completely dry. So a lot of this work, it's visible, you can see it. And whenever we have donors or people visiting us, we take them to the health centers and we highlight these different areas too.
Now, Jess, both Chris and I live in Port-au-Prince, and we can, testify, and you've worked in Port-au-Prince, so we can testify to the challenges and some of the positives, that are in Port-au-Prince around professional work. What is it like working at the hospital? What is it like being a professional in the province, and especially in a city that's not like Okap or, Okai, where, not a large provincial city? What is it like working out there and being a professional and all of that?
It's challenging in its ways, but also rewarding in a lot of ways. So you learn to realize what do you really need? What are the musts, and what's just like, okay, if I have this, that's great. So, I mean, I can just think for myself, like here, like the grocery store, the nearest grocery store is going to be in St. Mark. And even if you get to St. Mark, you're not going to get all the stuff you get at Caribbean or Delimat or Belmat. So I often find myself when I go to Port-au-Prince getting some things that are key and then bringing them back. So a lot of my meals are based around what's available in the community. So that's something that becomes like automatic. You also don't have the leisure activities at the same level. So when you think about restaurants, if you just need a break and you need to go somewhere, like you don't have that option here. So that can be challenging for most. And then I think also just the community and the mindset and the culture, right, can be challenging. And you have to humble yourself and remember that you're still a guest in this area. And no matter how frustrated you are, there's a limit that you must never cross, because you're still like an outsider almost. And I think in Port-au-Prince it's less, because what ends up happening up Province is you have this strong identity to their like town or like their zone. Yeah. So the people where I live in Deschapelles, it has a very strong sense of pride, and they're very prideful of their area. So they took a lot of ownership and do that, which is sometimes harder to find in Port-au-Prince. Sure. I will say there's a big difference in terms of like crime here. For me, at least on campus, it's really hard for someone in the community to do something and people not know about it. Whereas in Port-au-Prince, it's so many of us and we're like all over the place. It doesn't have that like community, like it takes a village vibe that I get in Deschapelles.
That's really what I hear the most about provincial life, is the sense of security is exponentially higher because it is community. Like everyone knows everyone. And you can't just, folks can't do something negative without the whole community getting into the act. And to the point where this is terrible, but they say if you're driving through a community out in the provinces and say if you get into an accident, say you run into
Oh,
a goat
yeah.
or heck, God forbid, a person, a lot of times they'll tell you either you want to run to the nearest police center, come and say that, because the community will themselves react,
Yeah.
right? And that because they're used to
Yeah.
that. That's the culture. The culture is the community reacts to whatever thing that is threatening or negative, and that keeps folks in line. It's like sort of self-policing in a way.
It does. And I think it's further than a community. It's a family, right? Because most of them are cousins. So it's like the way this works is like, okay, so there's like all these distant cousin lines because so and so lived up in this land and then they moved down and they started a family and then they split up the land between their kids and so on and so on, and it goes down the line. So like it's very hard for someone to attack someone from this community and not attack the entire community. It's very hard to do something here for it not to be known because it's all family at the end of the day.
And that's certainly one of my favorite parts of the provincial. What has been your favorite professionally and just living there? What is that? Is that it, or what's just the one thing that you're like, oh man, if I were to leave, I'd so regret missing? Is it just the nature, the atmosphere? What is it?
I think it's a mix of the nature, the atmosphere. I'm always at peace. Like I work often. Like I'm always working, not work often. I'm always working, honestly. And when I get to my little house on campus, it's like, okay, downtime. And there are times where my internet's not even working. So you're really not connected. So I think it's a good space. I would recommend it to anyone who feels like Port-au-Prince is too much. For me, I really got tired of the traffic in Port-au-Prince. And I got tired of the pace of things in Port-au-Prince, and I kind of got tired of the culture a little bit. I think sometimes I got frustrated in how contradictory everything was. Like, and that pushed me away. That was definitely a push factor for me because it's like, well, we make, really, really like the wage, the income's really low, but then like the expenses or the outings or like if you want to go get a nice meal, like it's crazy expensive. So to me, I was like, it just doesn't add up for me. And I got tired of being frustrated about that. So yeah, I think for me that extra sense of mind, that peace of mind is there. And it's definitely not superficial here because we do what we have and that's it. Okay. Like you can't fake it or you can't do more than what you have. There's no credit or there's no like, oh, say when bum sign and next time about because everyone's kind of like in the same boat. So we're just very real with what's going on here, and I really, really love that here.
So specifically to what you're doing in the hospital, run us through your responsibilities and what you're doing on the day to day. Because I know you're basically at you're at an operational level, like you're basically the operational head there, right? You don't have a medical background, you're not necessarily doing procedures, but in terms of operating a hospital, that's your job. So to bring that down to us, what does that mean, and what are your responsibilities day to day?
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting experience because I think in the state, we say it all the time, most people don't end up working in their field, their specific field. And this is something that shows how crazy social work can get, right? That training. So my day-to-day, we start our days early here. So we start at 7 and we end at 5. So I just do a lot of administrative things. So I look for new opportunities for the institution. I'm basically the CEO's right hand and like his go-to person here on the ground when he's traveling or doing a lot of fundraising and development abroad. So in my role here, I often like look for new opportunities, see who's interested in partnering with us at the local level here. And then I follow up on like any potential donors that are coming and trying to get that indirect, like in person, like experience. So I do operations where like we have a medical team, we have the community department, the community division, and we have a physical point for all of the stuff that's going on campus. So I really do a lot of coordinating. I love it because each department have their department head. So I don't need to have the expertise, but I need to figure out how to make things happen and problem solve with them and coordinate and streamline. Which, if you work in Haiti, and you've seen this maybe at other organizations, it's often in silos.
Yeah.
People often work in silos. Departments do their own thing, and there's no streamlining. So my role here is to really streamline and to bring everything into perspective, so we're all on the same page and aligning to the mission. So I do the hard things and the nice things. So if there's something great happening that's going to benefit all of the employees, I'm the one to implement and to announce. But if we have to do some not so great things, I also have to implement and be the one to deliver the bad news. So really, truly operation. Like anything that's uncertain and they're not sure about, like Madame Laguerre or what should we do, like that comes to me and then I follow up with the rest of the senior team.
Running a hospital in Haiti, really, I know you haven't run a hospital in America, so it's hard to really give a direct, okay, this is what I experienced here. But I don't know, just walk us through, that as much as you could realistically compare. And I know we all been to clinics in America and we had to be treated. And so, and what are the challenges? And also, I guess, one thing about being a country where healthcare is so sparse, you can certainly talk about at the end of the day, maybe a success story or two that you've seen. So, yeah.
I think when we talk about challenges, we can't live out technology here. A lot of the work is like old school, like dossier file, patient files, like hard copies, right? So you can imagine for an institution that serves 250,000 people, like that's like a monster trying to get that going and getting them before a physician. So that's a challenge overall. And the fact that we're not there quite yet with technology is challenging. And you want to implement it and you want to try it, but you also have to be mindful, does it make sense for the community? Because there are things that I like all about and I want us to get going on, or like I suggested the team and we're all excited on, but we have to take a step back and say, can the people that work with us really implement these changes? Can they really work with these changes? Because you have to be mindful that most Haitians don't have access to like a laptop or a computer. So most of them is like smartphones. So like if you're making an extreme change that requires a lot more, like what are you going to do with the pool of people, your employees who don't have that skill set? So I think that can be challenging in the healthcare system here. What I'm grateful for is that we don't have to make the decision of who gets what. And this is something I feel for and I cringe at for anyone who works in healthcare and who often has to make this decision in Haiti because the resources are so limited. So I'm grateful that like we're in a position, the team and I, where we don't have to decide like, okay, you can get healthcare, you can get this, or you can get that. Because even though the fees are pretty low, if someone comes and they really can't pay, we have another system in place to help them.
And you said 250,000 is
350,000.
350,000. That's what your amount of patients?
The population, like the area that we cover.
Wow. That's sizable.
Yeah.
Sizable.
Yeah.
Okay. And out of that, do you have one particular story that really comes to mind in terms of the, importance of what you're doing?
I can't really pinpoint one thing because of all of the services we offer and how life-changing they are. So like, for example, our orthopedic surgeon and the work that he's doing, like all the motos, the accidents, the car accidents, the unpaved roads. Like if you didn't have this service, there would be so many lives lost. And then like, oh my gosh, maternity. Oof, that's tough in Haiti. That's so tough. Most women in Haiti still have to give birth at home.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it often because in Port-au-Prince you have the hospital and most do at the hospital. But once you get out of Port-au-Prince, most people give birth at home. So I was saying for maternity, it's really bad, right? Because there's so many pregnant women out there having kids and who aren't necessarily getting their prenatal visits and they're delivering at home and it's risky and they're delivering with traditional childbirth attendants and some of them is just like a tradition. So like my mother did this, so I'm doing this because she passed on the skill sets down and so on. So if they're not trained or they don't have the right equipment, that can really, really have an impact. So like Honestly, it's tough work to do it in a country with resources so limited, but it's also very rewarding every single day because I get to walk by the baby monitor, like and hear the baby monitor like boom, 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 the baby's
Mm,
heart rate
mhm.
from the delivery room, and that is like encouraging. Or like the malnutrition, like I think it's hard to pick a specific thing because there's so many challenges here. And Haiti has been in this position for some time now, so it can get old for some people to talk about things. And I feel like this is often what's happening. Like people don't talk about HIV/AIDS the same way anymore, but that's still very much prevalent in our communities here.
Mhm.
Or malnutrition, that's still like very much prevalent with children. Like we have a chronic malnutrition ward where we hospitalize maybe about 20, 30 kids every month
Mhm.
without even factoring in the community work that we're doing for malnutrition. So this is it's a hard work, but to know that you're able to touch one or two or three or four people and that this is a whole teamwork. And I think what's powerful about this is this organization started off as something run by like US and expats. The physicians were all expats at some point. The entire staff was expat at some point from the US, Canada, and Switzerland and other European countries. But now we're 99% Haitian.
Mhm.
You
So
guys gonna
you get a lot of like, okay, we can do this. Like we just
Yeah,
need the resources. This is what I feel when I go through this. Like Haiti can do this on its own. We
yeah,
just need the resources, right? So I'm
yeah.
encouraged by that. So it's tough work, but rewarding work.
I was going to ask that. How of the doctors that are there? I know probably the nurses are probably all Haitian, but in terms of the doctors there,
Hmm.
how many are
All
from abroad or all
Haitian.
Haitian? Okay, yeah,
All Haitian.
okay.
The medical team is all Haitian. On our campus right now, we maybe have like two or three people that are not like locally trained.
Mhm. Mhm.
And me being one, and then we have a physical plant director, and then we have another community service director. So everyone, it's local talent, locally trained. So the organization has been intentionally transitioning to a more local staff, which is
Very good.
great. And it's
That
it's
is
it's
good.
good that we're able to do this work and do it with all Haitians. It's
Very good.
powerful.
That is
Yeah,
good.
that's certainly helpful for self-sufficient, self-sustainability. That's a big deal.
Hmm.
Last question I have on my part really has to do with COVID. I know
Mhm.
you did
Hmm.
mention that you are helping with hand washing and initiatives and things of that sort. So talk to us about how are you seeing the overall preparedness in terms of
Mm.
other organizations in your area. How engaged are the Haitians there? Do they believe it? I'm seeing some things. Some folks are it's a political thing from the government. Are they really believing and taking it serious?
Hmm.
And do you feel at least your area anyhow is are we in a good relatively good place or moving in a good direction?
So what's really been my experience so far with COVID is that most Haitians are like extremely vulnerable, right? Because most of the, if you know, like, I don't know if you can just kind of like do it off the top of your head, try not think about all the people that you know locally that are diabetic or have hypertension.
Mhm.
So
A lot.
that's very, very prevalent in our community, in our culture, for nationwide at all levels, regardless of socioeconomic status, education, all of that stuff. Diabetes and hypertension is very prevalent in Haiti. So when you have that and you think about the living conditions most Haitians are in, when we say like, okay, you need to self quarantine or self isolate at home in a separate room away from the rest of the family, that's a luxury.
Mm.
Most people are like in these like two bedrooms or one big bedroom, one big room or big space homes. So I think in order they may have separate rooms, but a lot of people are living in these spaces. So it's easy to pass it on, especially if you don't have any symptoms, right? Which we know most people don't. Like so it's a very scary thing. It's a very scary thought. I think my team and I we've been working, we've been preparing, but I can honestly say I don't think anyone will be ready for COVID-19. Like anyone is or will be. Like you can do the best that you can to prepare. Like we've designated a specific center space. We have a space that we weren't using. We renovated it quickly. And it's only supposed to be for COVID-19 patients so that we keep them away from the rest of the patients at the hospital. So we're doing all that we can. We're preparing the team. We're aware, and I think we're trained to the best of our abilities in terms of like, since this is so very new and there's not one clear cut best way to treat this, and it varies from patient to patient. So the team's well aware and we're well versed in what like we know is being done elsewhere, and we're ready to do that here. But if we think about the impact this may have in Haiti, if we want to be honest about the structure that we have here, the public transportation, we're thinking about the open markets, the marché. If you're thinking about the way people live at home, or the culture of hugging and kissing, or like all of that plays a role into it. And then access to clean water. Like you're telling people to wash their hands, but not everyone have access to clean water. So it's a very complicated situation for us, and I'm praying that it doesn't get to that level that they're anticipating it will get to. Yeah.
Are you seeing the Haitians taking it serious though? How you see that? How are they receiving this information? And at very least, even, I mean, do you believe they believe how serious it is?
I think it's a mix. It's a mix. You have people who are part of the vulnerable group who believe it, right? Some of them, those who are older, they believe it. Some of them are aware of it. If you take the time to really break it down to most people, they get it. It's not that they're not aware. I think that's the difference. Sometimes we say education. They're aware, but I think also people are in a tough situation where, okay, I know this is a risk, but me staying home and not having means to cook for myself is also not a good situation.
Right.
So people believe it, but I think it's a kind of like a coping mechanism for the most part to kind of downplay it so that they can do what they need to do to survive, right? Then you also have those people who believe it, but they don't believe it will happen to them necessarily or someone that they know, which is another big factor. It's not that they don't know this virus is there. They just believe that what they're doing keeps them safe, and that their immediate circle won't be affected by this.
And Mark, I know your organization, Tier Fund, is also very engaged in helping with preparedness. Are you kind of hearing the same thing Jessica's telling us? Like, how do you, are you seeing things?
Yeah, it's like she says, it's very mixed. You have a group of people who are taking it very seriously, and taking the proper precautions and measures to make sure that they keep themselves safe and other people safe. Then you also have another group of people who, like we said earlier, you have to see it to believe it. And, they won't believe it until someone they know is affected. But also, there's also another group of people, which we kind of hinted to, who believe it and who know that it's problematic, but who say, look, I can't self-quarantine. I can't stock up food in my fridge. I don't have a fridge. And I need to make money every day. Self-quarantine self-isolation is not an option for me. And I think that's the majority of our people in Haiti. We're telling everybody to self-quarantine. They can't stock food in their houses. They have to make money every day. And so it's a problem. It's a dilemma that we have here in Haiti because of the way our infrastructure is, because of the lack of finance in the households. So it's a very tough problem for us.
Okay. Yeah, it's certainly I see that for myself. I know folks have to work to make some income, and there has been the distribution of assistance from the Haitian government is effectively non-existent, even in the best of times, and so it's tricky. So I agree with you. I keep my fingers crossed. So far, the cases have been relatively limited. At least those confirmed and tested have been relatively limited. And so we can hope it stays that way. And if the world can just get its act together the sooner that happens, then the sooner Haiti can get out the clear. So we'll see. We'll see. But I'm just happy that people like Jessica are in the country. People like Jessica are making sure that their neck of the woods, wherever they may be in the country, are doing the right things. Yeah. And that's what I can't discount enough. I can't discount enough the importance of us in the diaspora to be able to do what we can. And especially if we can be fortunate to move back and confident enough to move back. I know, Jessica, I'm sure you're experiencing like, man, what if I wasn't there? I mean, would someone else be doing as good of a job as me? I don't know. Right. But I'm sure your impact there is appreciated beyond measure. For sure. I know you're humble. You probably wouldn't. Tune your home. I'm tuning your home for you, Jessica. So certainly appreciate that. So before we head out, I don't know what final thoughts do you have for our audience? Remember, our audience is Haitian diaspora who are mostly living stateside and Canada. We even got some Switzerland listeners when I'm reviewing the statistics, which is interesting. What word would you give them as a final parting for what perhaps would you have wanted to have heard, while you were out there and before you moved back? What sort of final thoughts do you have for us?
I honestly have to say, just have a lot of faith and be bold and apologetic about what you want to do. Because I think sometimes things are challenging here and there are more reasons to not do sometimes than to do. So you just have to really believe in what you're doing and be bold enough to do something completely different if that's what it is, because sometimes you're not going to conform with your vision. So that's honestly, and having a lot of faith. Like I took a risk. I was willing to take this risk. I knew that this could end up really well or really bad, but I was okay if it ended up really bad to doing something else. Right. So I think that's really it. So I would encourage anyone to consider it. And if you want to do it, and there's not one formula, you could start by volunteering, then going back and forth, like a hybrid position like this. There is not one formula. And there are also other ways to be involved with nonprofit doing the work here while still being stateside. So this is a very complex and interesting space to be in. And I think a lot of people can contribute in their own ways.
Awesome. Jessica, thanks. I can tell you what I've gotten from this conversation is, you're the first person who we've had who really had the opportunity to gestate both in Haiti as an adolescent and then to finish their second half in the States. So you can really provide a great, a comparison and well thought out explanation of what it means to be a Haitian from those two worlds and still have the confidence to come back and engage. I was able to gain from just the fact that you were able to use resources in Haiti to find impactful employment opportunities recently too, only 2018 recently, which is awesome. And then I learned quite a bit about the organization. I didn't really know about Hospital Albert Schweitzer and all the different things that are being done. That makes me so happy to know that our brothers and sisters in the provinces, there are independent actors who are impacting great work that is changing and stabilizing their communities while we wait for a government to finally get its act together and catch up and be doing its job, which is what effectively what you guys are doing is what they should be doing, or at least full hands-on partners. But we can't wait for that to happen. I'm happy folks are engaged. So I learned a lot, and there's some little tips about where to find the job, Paul. We'll be posting some of those links and some of those, and also the organization's link will be also in the description of what we include. So that's look out for that, guys. If you're listening, Mark, what are some of the things you've appreciated from this conversation?
A lot. Well, first, I think Hospital Albert Schweitzer sounds like a good Seejeanty episode. To get out there. I concur. But I think a lot of times we often hear about people moving to the States. Usually when we hear about people moving to Haiti, usually when we hear about people doing something, it's after the fact. It's after it's already been done. And you're like, dang, this person like Chris Seejeanty moved to Haiti. I wonder, what he was like when he was younger. And this is really cool for me because Jess and I knew each other before the transition. We knew each other when it was just a dream. it was all a dream, like big, like literally Jess and I, we would sit down and talk, like, we want to move back to Haiti. And, we would have friends in Philly. We talk about moving back to Haiti, and to see, like, both of us are in Haiti. Both of us have made the transition. It's really encouraging to say, yo, it's possible. It can happen. You can do it, and you won't die. Because people are like, oh, move to Haiti, mushroom. No, you can move to Haiti, you'll pop mushroom.
So that's the episode. Jessica has been incredibly been very gracious in terms of providing her background, her experience. So very happy to have had her. Ma Pimpo Haiti, the Haitian Diaspora Living in Haiti podcast. Is that's what we like to do here. We like to bring folks in, give their backgrounds, give their perspective each time. It's a completely new universe we enter, and Jessica has been just phenomenal in adding value to our ROI, return on information. So it's been fantastic. As always, we have our episodes coming out just about weekly during this era of COVID. So those of you guys, please subscribe wherever you may be watching this. We're on everything. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. Those who may be watching wherever you are, make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Hit that 5-star button wherever you may be watching this. We certainly appreciate it, right? And listen, guys, that's a wrap. And until we're back at it again.
Back at it again.
Right. Back at it again.
Thank you for having me, and thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Jess.
Ciao.
All right, then.